fire was crushed by Sahelanthropus,
Extraction
while the Soviets
arrived at
recovered his
Motherbase.
body. Could he really be dead? Boss, head for Yaha Obu's supply outpost and secure the man on fire's body.
야코 오보
If
오겠지?
Skullface was right, and a thirst for revenge can turn a man into a demon and keep the dead alive, then this man on fire who's been coming after us ever since he woke up,
역시 볼긴이었어. 딱 몸 라인이 딱 봐도 볼긴이더라고.
A ruler's greatest wealth is not money or land. It is the number of individuals under his control. Subjects who work, consume, are there to be used as pawns in war. For a capitalist ruler, his people's power becomes his power. You are the same. With your diamond dogs, you spin it with your speeches. But what you're doing is bringing as much talent as you can into your little domain. Every person another feather in your cap. Yes, since ancient times, every civilization's ruler has had the same idea. When people unite under one will, they become stronger than the sum of their parts. And the one will is the ruler's will. And what do rulers use to bring people together? Language. In the Old Testament, it is written that only one language was spoken in Eden. A shared tongue that united all of humanity. Mankind eventually grew aware of its power and harnessed that strength to build a tower to the heavens. The mighty Tower of Babel. This angered God, who splintered the language of man, and the tower was never completed. Languages emerged, and the earth was divided as men went their separate ways. Every age is the same. A ruler's first order of business, after conquering new land, is to force his tongue on its people. Ancient Rome, Napoleon, and now Zero. English is wreaking havoc around the world right now. The British Empire tilled the land with war as its hoe, then began planting the seed that is English. Eventually, American capitalism became the new instrument. To play its game of wealth, you only have to abide by one rule: English. By exploiting people's desires, English has become a leash that people gladly wear around their necks, it would seem.
there's something I've been wondering. Why are you called Code Talker? During World War II, the U.S. military used the languages of different tribes, including the Navajo, as codes, right? I know the term Code Talker was used to mean people sent to the battlefield to speak in those codes. Were you one of them?
Our mother tongue was indeed used for war. But I did not go. I was already over the conscription age. However, I was made to help craft the codes that were spoken. So in a wider sense, you could call me a code talker for that. Navajo is a complex language, and virtually no one outside the U.S. speaks it. They must have thought it was the perfect language to use as a code.
Yeah, in the end, the Japanese never cracked it. The cipher is king in information warfare.
Of course, they didn't simply speak in Navajo. They created substitutions for words according to a code book, and then translated those into our language. Young Diné was sent to the front lines of the Pacific Theater as code talkers. To fight is an honor for the Diné. They were the pride of our people. But I cannot say this history brings me joy. Words are alive. When they are spoken, life is breathed into them. They become a part of the listener. Our words were transformed into lifeless ciphers and used for war. This, after the Black Ana spent generations suppressing the language.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess we shouldn't be calling you Code Talker, huh?
No, I do not mind. The reason Skullface called me Code Talker was because I also am responsible for coding language into the vocal cord parasites. I am the same as those young warriors, used for a cipher's sake. I must never forget that. The name, Code Talker, is a lesson carved into my being.
You said Skullface ordered you to weaponize the vocal cord parasites. But you also said he wasn't the reason.
And he wasn't. I was seduced by the parasites. That is a fact.
How? You mean from your curiosity as a scientist?
That I cannot deny. But there is more to it. The story goes back to the 19th century, to my earliest memory. One day, a man from the government visited our Hogan, our home. I cried as he yanked me from my mother's arms and took me away to an Indian boarding school. From that day forward, I became George. This was the name my teacher gave me. I was forced to give up my Diné name, forbidden from speaking anything but English. If we dared utter a word of filthy Navajo, the teacher made us eat a bar of soap.
Yeah, that was the U.S. government's education policy for Native Americans.
To erase our words was like erasing our people. Their education was tantamount to ethnic cleansing. Over time, the overt persecution of our language stopped. But to this day, it continues to be eaten away by the lingua franca, that is English. Many of the Diné outside the reservations can speak nothing else. And it isn't just our language. Across the world, minority languages are being destroyed by dominant languages. Many are on the verge of extinction.
Enter the vocal cord parasites.
Yes, I began thinking that minority languages needed some sort of deterrent against dominant languages. In order that their peoples and cultures would survive. It was then that I came across literature at the Foundation claiming that man acquired language thanks to a type of parasite, one that distinguishes between languages as a precursor to reproduction. If I could just resurrect it, make it more pathogenic, I would have my deterrent against English. But I failed to hide that aim from Skullface. He noticed. Yes, I wanted to retaliate against the English language, though never did I intend to actually use it as he planned. You know how the story ends. I was forced to study how to make the parasites compatible with all the world's languages. All but English.
However, he in fact secretly isolated an English strain.
I will not be held prisoner by the man's phantom. The English strain must not be allowed to exist either.
오케이 알았어. 자 돌아가자. 일단 ACC로. 왠지 그럴 것 같더라고. 아군이 되진 않을 것 같은데.
Extraction arrived at Mother Base.
이게 서브 퀘스트로 진행이 돼버리네요. 원래 메인 퀘스트에 있어야 될 법한 미션인데도. 그렇죠. 자, 불타는 남자의 유해 확보.
Please select a landing zone.
아, 여기 조금 까칠까칠한 곳인데, 위치가.
Deploying.
메탈 기어 솔리드 3의 보스로 나왔던 녀석이에요. 네, 소련 군인이었죠. 막 소련이 성립됐을 때 실세 중에 한 명으로 나오는데. 빅보스한테 발려가지고 죽었죠 뭐. 네, 주인공한테 털려서 죽었죠. 아, 그게 지금 어떤 분은 이 팬텀페인에서 죽은 거 말씀을 하시는 거고, 어떤 분은 그 볼긴이 어떻게 죽었는지 말씀을 하시니까 3에서 어떻게 죽었는지 물어보는 것 같은데, 말씀을 하시는 것 같은데, 3에서 볼긴은 그냥 빅보스한테 깝치다가 죽였습니다. 마지막에 1대1 CQC로 싸워. 직전에서 아마 기억이 나요. 팬텀페인에서는 그거에 대해서 죽었죠. 지금 현재 나온 바로 따르면은 사일렌트 로프스한테 밟혀가지고 플랫폼에 그래서 죽었는데.
Please select
여기.
a deployment point.
플스3로 HD 에디션 있잖아요. 그거 하시면 되죠. 왠지 내 개인적인 예상인데 조만간 풀 HD 에디션이 나오지 않을까 싶어. 코나미 하는 짓거리 보면. 물론 안 한 걸로.
Enemy presence detected. The map has been updated.
뭐지? 뭐가 벌써부터 쾅쾅 터지고 있지?
Buddy has infiltrated and the map has been updated.
설마 불타는 남자가? 이 새끼 또 살아난 거 아니야? 정말 싫은데.
Analysis complete.
어디서 폭발이 있었다는 거지?
Analysis complete. Analysis complete.
저게 불타는 남자 시체 시신인 것 같은데. 누워 있었어.
Enemy presence detected. The map has been updated. The map analysis complete.
나 너무해. 커버 파이어. 빰빰. 콰이어트 신나는 노래 나도 한번 불러본다.
Analysis complete.
안 만들었으니까요.
Enemy presence detected. The map has been updated.
안 만들었으니까.
He's coming too. Roger that.
콰이어트 왜 이동했어?
fire!
Что случилось? Ответьте, Звезды-1!
횟수가 야속하더라. 야속한데 아 잠깐만 다 회수 못했다고 이놈아. 이놈아 이거 이벤트치 끝나고 갑자기 적들이 일어나면 매우 난감해지지 않니? 무슨 애를 스폰을 만들어놨지? 뭔가 씁쓸하다. 뭐지? 설마 아, 나 진짜 또 어떻게 싸워야 되니? 물탱크 근처에 물이 없는데? 아니 설마 이 시츄에이션은 볼긴 원래 저렇게 생겼었어요. 그 약간 전기 피카츄였는데 얘가 얘는 갑자기 왜 이래? 역시 3에서도 완전 허세 만빵 녀석이었는데 여기서도 허세.
Extraction arrived at Mother Base.
원래 참 별거 없는 놈이었지만 참 별거 없이 끝났네. 보스에 비해선 딱히 뭐 공략법도 그렇게 인상적인 게 없고 뭐 하나 제대로 보여주지 못하고 끝났어. 그냥 뭐 도전 과제
I
같은
barely
거.
recognize you, Colonel. Skullface used your thirst for revenge against Big Boss, did he?
자, 역시나 또 격리 플랫폼.
Sign up
I've updated
completed.
the mission list. We've received some new job offers. The details are on your iDroid.
진짜 볼긴이 그래도 메탈기어 솔리드 3에서 나름 보스의 위용이 있긴 했는데. 아니 뭐야 잠깐 이 포인트가 뜬다는 건 살아있다는 건가?
Volgan, the Gru colonel, was burned alive with the Shagoha during Operation Snake Eater 20 years ago. Despite suffering severe burns to his entire body, he still clung to life. After you left Seleniarsk, Volgan's body was taken to a research institute in the outskirts of Moscow. But modern medicine couldn't explain why he was still alive. Not that the colonel was any ordinary man to begin with. That constant electric current he had running through his body that he could unleash at will. To be honest, I was always uncomfortable around him. Thought I might get electrocuted just by standing nearby. The institute studying him was tasked with investigating and developing human paranormal abilities. The comatose Volgan was used to further the Soviet Union's research into such abilities. But not long ago, the facility burned to the ground, and Volgan's body was never found among the rubble, even though the fire started in the room where they were keeping him. This occurred at around the same time you woke up. If Skullface was right, and a thirst for revenge can turn a man into a demon and keep the dead alive, and this man on fire who's been coming after us ever since you woke up, well, that just might be what's left of our old friend Volgan. It's not over yet. Back in '64, in Seleniuarsk, you brought his plans for a utopia down in flames. That grudge is what's keeping him alive. The day the research facility holding Volgan burned down, a Soviet jumbo passenger jet happened to crash nearby, far away to the north of that hospital in Cyprus. On board the plane was a young boy who was being studied at the same facility. The plane fell to Earth from over 8,000 feet, but the boy's body was the only one not recovered. At almost exactly the same time as the crash, Volgan awoke in that facility. According to the Research Institute's documents, the gifts this boy demonstrated included psychokinesis and telepathy. To protect his mind from being inundated with other people's thoughts, he always wore a kind of gas mask. A rudimentary form of psychic insulation, apparently. We don't know where this boy is, but if Skullface is connected to him, we may cross paths with him yet. This boy is part of a new age where nothing we understand about the world makes sense anymore. Don't let your guard down. So what were they doing at Nzoya Badia, Baloo? That facility with all the people laid out in rows?
The abandoned factory Shabani was held in. It is precisely as you guessed. Black Anna was coding languages into the vocal cord parasites. They infected the subjects with the parasites, then made an incision in the throat to expose the vocal cords. That allowed them to play recordings of a desired language directly to the parasites. And the parasites learn the languages that way. That's some teaching method. I just don't get how a bunch of bugs had the brain power for it. They don't. Do not judge them by human standards. They do not learn as a function of intellect.
Then how do they do it?
What language the parasites react to is coded into their genes. You could expose the Japanese strain to English for years, and it would never learn the language and react to it. The pronunciation, rhythm, and structure are different. But what about, say, Spanish and Portuguese? Linguistically, the two are very close.
Yeah, they're both Ibero-Romance languages.
Even so, a Spanish language mating pair exposed to Portuguese will not copulate. Only when they hear Spanish. Only then. And the majority of their offspring will be the same.
So it's a literal case of a mother tongue.
But if that's so, I don't see how the different strains could be created in the first place.
Well, among the many thousands of offspring, there may be just a few that react to Portuguese.
You're talking about mutations.
Correct. Playing the tapes helps to identify the mutant strains. Those specimens are then isolated and bred with one another. From their children, specimens that react more strongly to Portuguese can again be selected and bred. Repeating this process creates a strain that reacts solely to Portuguese and never to Spanish. Mutation and selection. No different to breeding roses.
So you kept increasing the change over the generations, adapting them to languages from all over the world. Must have taken a hell of a lot of patience.
More like patience. Just how many died for this?
There's something I still don't get. In order to tell which larvae will react to Portuguese, you'd have to let them develop and then see which copulate. That means you'd need tens of thousands of guinea pigs. There's no way you could do that in a facility that small.
For normal selective breeding methods, you would be right. But there is a more effective selection method when training the vocal cord parasites. Go on. It is not only when mating that the parasites listen for language. Shortly before hatching, larvae display markedly increased activity in reaction to particular language. The active eggs can be identified under a black light, so the eggs that react to Portuguese are selectively placed in the throats of subjects. So you see, narrowing down strains that react to the target language is an effective process. Though I'm sure that even so, many lost their lives to create the various strains. Taken against their will into that dungeon. There are two reasons for playing the tapes for the parasites. One, to isolate the eggs that respond to the target language. And two, to cause the specimens raised from the selected eggs to mate.
I get how the system works. But why do they respond to language before they even hatch? It's not like they can mate from inside an egg.
It is because the larvae learn the language before hatching.
You mentioned that what language the parasites respond to is hard-coded into their genes, and that they don't have the brain power to actually learn a language. But then you say that the larvae at Nzoyabadiabulu were learning the languages in the egg. Your story doesn't add up.
Your country is home to a unique songbird. The Japanese bush warbler.
Sure, what of it?
What a beautiful call it has. But no bush warbler can sing it perfectly at the start. As chicks, they can barely chirp at all. They must learn from their parents and other adult birds. Only then can they sing properly and attract females. So naturally, there are individual differences in each bird's call. Though they start on the same footing, each bird is influenced by its teachers.
And the parasites are the same?
Like the birds, the parasites have a genetic predisposition towards a particular language. But while in the egg, the larvae's ears are tweaked by listening to the voice of the host. This tweaking ensures that the grown parasites will react better to the host's speech pattern.
Why would they have an ability like that?
Well, there are distinct regional differences within even the same language. Rare is the language that has no unique dialects. Yes, learning the host's speech pattern before hatching attunes the larvae to whatever twist of pronunciation it will encounter. This adaptive ability is what makes them so formidable.
I see. So a language requires selective breeding, but the parasites can learn dialects by themselves.
Of course, having the egg-stage larvae listen to the tapes in the factory was not meant to teach them. It was more important to use that trait of theirs to identify the mutated strains. As I mentioned earlier,
Is that really accurate enough to use as a weapon? You could wipe out a neighboring ethnic group by accident if their pronunciation is too close.
what you say is true. In that sense, they are imperfect as ethnic cleansers. But for his purposes, they are good enough. His objective was not to exterminate any one ethnic group, but to render the world's lingua franca, English, inert.
아니 반응을 하는 것 같아. 이러다 갑자기 겁나 빡쳐가지고 날 때릴 것 같은 그런 느낌적인 느낌을 받는다. 자, 돌아가자.